This is a tutorial on how to create this text behind head match cut transition. The difficulty level is a 3 out of 5, and the techniques we will use include match cut, auto background removal, and some keyframing as well. The app that I'm going to use is CapCut, and here are some examples of how to apply it to your niche. Pause to read and let's get started. Let's take a look at the clips required for this tutorial. First of all, you want to film it horizontally, and you want to make sure to film it in 60 frames per second. This is particularly important because we're going to slow it down. And in order to slow it down, if you watched lesson 1, you'll know that we want to film in a higher frame rate. You could also film in slow-mo at 120 frames per second if you want it to be even slower. Looking back, I probably would have preferred to have done that than have done 60 frames per second, but nonetheless, this works as well. So we have several different locations. I have put them all into this folder to save time when I'm picking out the clips. And then I've just gone ahead and favorited some of the clips that I think could work. And there are multiple for one location sometimes. Sometimes it's just one of the clips that works. So we have this one, and it's very simple. It's always just the same repetitive motion where you pull out slowly like this. You can do whatever motion you want, but ideally you keep your face roughly in the same spot at the same angle so that it doesn't change up too much. You could add some motion if you want, but I prefer to just have it match nicely. Here's another one in a different location, and another one here. And one thing is you do want to try and film it at roughly the same speed when you're pulling out each time, so that you are both filming at 60 frames per second for all the clips and you're pulling out at roughly the same speed, so that when you're editing, it's an easier editing process. You can slow it down at roughly the same speed, the same percentage. But that's just like a nice plus if you can. It's not an absolute must. We can still slow it down more than 50% if you have to, because these are very, very short clips. So once you have favorited the clips that you do want to use, you can go in and just remove the rest to avoid confusion and not use the wrong clips. So I'm just gonna delete a bunch of these, remove from album. And then now let's go into CapCut and let's input all of the clips. We can always remove the ones we don't end up wanting later, but for now let's input everything in here. So the first step is just to go in and trim all the clips to roughly the right spot. Now that you have all the clips, let's put in the music and then start to match up the clips. One more thing is, ideally when you are filming, you also want to keep a rough same distance when you start and when you end. Now this is not very exact in every single clip because some of them, they were all filmed by different people actually, and also they were sort of pulling out at various different speeds, so it's not always something you can control, but if possible, try to keep it as consistent as possible. Also try to keep in mind how much space is above the head and to try and keep that consistent as well. I do want to go in and adjust some of the exposures of these clips, especially this one. The face just looks extremely dark, so I'm going to go in and increase the brightness and especially the shadows like this. Maybe lower the highlights a little bit, and potentially also just make it a little more saturated. And that looks pretty decent. We could also potentially go into HSL and make the orange part brighter. You see how when I scroll it, the skin tone gets brighter. So that could work. We could also go into blue, make that darker to hopefully bring back the sky that's a little bit blown out. No, it doesn't do too much, but maybe this. Okay. All right, that should be good enough. in terms of the lighting. We could also do it to this one too. It is a little bit dark in the face, so I'm just gonna go in and make minor adjustments, mainly just to the shadow so that it overall looks brighter. So that looks fine. Let's go in and do it for this one. Now I'm leaving a few extra clips of the same location instead of just only having one of the best clip, just because I'm not sure which one will match up best. So I'm importing multiple clips and then I can delete the other one once I determine that I already have enough footage that match together well. So I want to first start with this most iconic view. So I'm going to drag this towards the... So our first clip is actually the camera pushing in. However, all of the clips is us pulling out, pulling away from the subject. So we just need to reverse the order for it. And so what I'm going to do is find a clip somewhere here that looks good to push forward, maybe this part. And then I'll reverse the order. And then after that, we're gonna put in all the different location clips and match the size of the head while we pull out and reveal every single location. So let's first go to speed and reduce this to 50% because it is a 60 frame per second clip. So you want to you're able to reduce the speed to 50%. Obviously, you can reduce it even more and then smooth it if you need to, or if you reduce it more and it's only like a split second, then it doesn't really matter. Let's extract the audio and input it into the timeline. So I screen recorded this from the IG Music library. So it's going to be about, maybe we can do it from here and split it. And we're going to reverse the order of this right here, reverse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed it up to the point where it ends at the right place in the music. So it's roughly, so right here-ish. So maybe we will speed it up a little bit to maybe 70%. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to just go in, use this head size as a reference and match cut for all of the subsequent clips. So you already know how it works to do the match cut. So I'm going to speed this next part up because it's really just repeating the steps over and over again. Overlaying it, reduce the opacity, increasing the size. You'll see they don't match up at all, but I'm just gonna really like crazily increase the size and just try to match it up well. And I'm gonna do that for all of the clips. And then once I have finished doing that, then I'll come back and explain how we're going to trim it, match it to the beat, and so on and so forth. Oh, and also don't forget to reduce the speed of all of the clips to 0.5 first, but you can also reduce it even more if you want to, or if the clip, the zoom out is a bit slower, then the pull out is slower, then you could also just, you know, make it faster. But generally speaking, because we filmed at 60 frames per second, we can slow it down by 50%. So I'm going to do that universally for all of the clips while I'm trimming them. And then I will adjust as necessary to see if I need to slow it down even more or speed it up a little bit to match it to the beat. Okay, so while I am trimming these, I'm already making sure it matches to the beat. So I'm just going to trim to the part where it matches. So you can kind of see these little raises in the sound. You know, that is roughly where it needs to change. So I'm just going to drag this forward a bit like this. And I know this is a transition. This is the next part where I want to change because of this little lump here. So I'm gonna split it right here. Okay, let's take a look at the first three clips first. So I think this clip zoomed out a bit too fast, especially compared to the first clip. So I'm just going to go in and slow it down even more. And let's take a look. That was good, and I don't feel like it is too low quality or anything, even though there's less frames per second. So I think we'll keep it as is. Okay, so now we just have to trim it at this part where the next clip should begin, and then let's find the spot where we should start. Preferably you don't want to start at the spot where their eyes are closed because it's incredibly obvious. Okay, let's go in. Also, I noticed that just the way that it was framed, I'm a bit low in the frame. So although here it is fine, I'm gonna move it up just a tiny bit. From here to here, I think it still looks pretty good. I'm gonna add a keyframe, and because from here to here, this one definitely, I feel like the frame got moved so that the head is quite low in the frame. So I'm gonna go in here and add a keyframe and just move it up a tiny bit so that my head is roughly, you know, not as low in the frame. Maybe we could even do the same for this one as well. So we can go here and we can go in and move it up a tad. And then we can do the same here, move it up a tad. I think that looks good. Framing wise, composition wise, I think it just looks better. You can always do this to any type of reels that you create. If you want to adjust the frame, you just have to crop in more and then add keyframes and then adjust it as you go. So now let's go in and continue the process of match cutting. Okay, so one thing I noticed that I really don't like is that I'm closing my eyes here at the end of this clip. So I'm just gonna go back and zoom out further and find the spot where I'm not closing my eyes and bring it forward and then zoom in and redo the whole process. So the reason why this actually takes quite a while is mostly not because it's difficult or anything technically, it's mainly just because it's hard to find the specific split second where it matches well and you're not blinking and all of that stuff. Alright, so I have finally finished the match cut and I have all the different clips all matching up. I had to manipulate some keyframes and also move some clips around in terms of the order because, like I said, not every clip was filmed with the same amount of space on the top and on the sides, and some of them were not centered, some of them were pulling out at different speeds, and that's just something that it takes you time to go in and adjust over and over and over again when you are editing. And here's what we have, and then after we look over this whole thing, we will go in and do our very last part, which is very easy. So lastly, you can hear this like 5 beats. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just need to find 5 clips and duplicate them and reverse the order. So first it's like we're pulling out, and then the last part it will be zooming back in. And just listen to the beats again. Okay, all right. Let's just do it in the exact reverse order. So let's go in and start by duplicating this clip and moving it over. And what we're gonna do is we don't want to speed it up too much because then it would look unnatural. So I'm going to trim it somewhere around here. And then let's go in, duplicate, move it to the back, and maybe trim it somewhere around here. Also, we need to reverse the order so that it reverses. So reverse and reverse this. And let's go in and duplicate more clips, move it to the end, trim it, and reverse it. So the clips are definitely too short right now, so I'm just going to go in and extend this minutes, the seconds, and take a look. Still too fast. Okay, that looks better. And then now let's go in and find the last clips. All right, let's go in and take a listen. Okay, I don't think it's as seamless as before, so we're gonna have to go in and match it up as best as we can. I think this one is the one that doesn't match up well. We could also just move it back and reorder some of it to see which one matches better. So all right, after so much adjusting and switching out clips and all of that, I finally have the clips matched up pretty well. So let's take a look. And then now we're going to add the text to the back of the head. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I actually also think that we could probably speed this up a little bit because I would like to see more of the beginning part. So I'm gonna move it out like this. Make sure it still matches the sound. Okay, I think that looks fine. Alrighty, now what we can do is export this, save to device. Now what we're going to do is add text to the back of this person's head. So I'm just going to add a ton of different variations of it. So I'm going to do in English and in kanji, so in Japanese. And what you want to do is make sure to have a huge variety of different fonts. That's how you make it look more of a cool like text changing effect. In terms of placement, I'm just placing it right in the middle. I'm going to trim it to this part and I'm going to duplicate it and just keep adding different fonts. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start splitting parts of the clip, split some more and delete the rest. And we'll have to play around with the timing duration of each of the text, but this is how you get it to change all the different fonts. Now just keep continuing this process. All right, now you should have all of the text behind the head. Well, right now it's in front, but don't worry, it will be behind later, and it should look something like this. You could also go in and adjust the speed at which it changes if you feel like it's changing too slow. I think it's a little slow here. I think we could speed it up a bit. And also one more thing is because it's moving so fast, people can't really tell if you just duplicate something that's like the same and move it over, you know. So I'm gonna go in and just add a couple more and make it a bit faster between each. Okay, let's take a look at that again. Okay, I think that looks good. Now we're just going to export this. Now let's put into a new project file the two exported version, one without text and one with text. And let's just go and find this one and do overlay, move it all the way to the front, delete this end part. And then you can trim it right till here, right when it switches, delete. And then now you want to go to remove background, auto removal. And now you have your body in front of the text. And now this is complete, so now you can export it at 1080p again. Very last step is just before you post it, go into crop and make sure that it is at the vertical 9:16 ratio. And you have your final reel.